While I love marketing, I hate marketing jargon. And tops on my list is the word brand. It's a hugely important word whose definition my own industry, I believe, has completely messed up. My guest today consults with practices about many things marketing, including what their brand is, could be, ought to be. And together, we're going to try to take on the task of simplifying what brand means and why you even need one. I'm Carl White, principal at Market Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of PracticeCare. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. It's usually what they want anyway, but care is better when the providers of care are the owners of the practice, because then every decision that's got to be made, whether it's clinical, business, whatever, is made by the people who are also taking care of the patients. And it just seems to me that's the best way to get the best patient care that's possible. My guest today is Daniel Tribby, returning guest, that is. Daniel Tribby is a healthcare provider, effective business growth strategist, award-winning author, top keynote speaker with a vision to help healthcare entrepreneurs build a practice that serves its patients and sustains profitability for the long term. My God, sounds like brand's an important part of that. Daniel, you are a three-peat or a four-peat guest returning here on Practice Care. Thank you for carving out yet more time for us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, these are a lot of fun. I feel like we always come up with really good conversations that hopefully are helping the audience kind of pick up on some things that'll help advance their business rather than just being something go, oh, that's interesting, but
Yeah.
nobody's empty.
Yeah, two guys riffing about something that only two guys care about. Hopefully, it's more than that. um, if you're just a first-time listener, you don't know Daniel yet. So, Daniel, let's take that point of view and just fill in that background for us. Tell us more about you. That was brief, but that's what I asked for.
Yeah, I've been involved in healthcare for 21 years now as a provider with a background in physical rehabilitation. Really, the essence is I got tired of the quantity over quality atmosphere that was part of the healthcare delivery model.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like healthcare needed to be more transformational and less transactional. And I think
Mm-hmm.
patients feel the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I stepped away from providing for a little while and took a track in the medical sales world, had some success, and eventually had the opportunity to open my own practice, which I never thought I would do.
Mm-hmm.
And opened that up and had a lot of success there. So much to the point that we grew 50% year over year in top line revenue during COVID. And then we boasted 40% margins, if I can brag a little bit. And we exited that practice in 2023. So I took a liking to the business development side and what really goes into the strategy of making private practice successful,
Mm-hmm.
and just started teaching what I had learned and coaching and consulting people on how to build a sustainable model that doesn't invite more chaos or more work for the owner themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
And what type of practice was it?
Yeah, it was regenerative medicine. So we did everything bone, muscle, joint, spine that was related to PRP, bone marrow aspirate, fat, adipose tissue, all those things. So
Okay, great. All right, let's boil the ocean here in about 27 minutes.
that's
We're
good.
talking about brand. The title of this episode is Yes, Even Your Practice Needs a Brand. And listener, chances are your practice has a brand, probably does. And one of the things we're probably going to talk about or at least mention is you're going to have a brand, whether you define it or the market does. So it's better off if you do. But let's start with basics. The definition of a brand, just what it was just so my God, you could find 15 books on a brand that all claim I know what it is, and you're going to get 15 different definitions. And this is part of my own frustration with it. So, for the purposes of you and I talking, let's see if we can get to sort of a really simple, plain language definition of a brand. You go
Yeah,
first.
that's. I think a lot of branding and they think colors and logo and taglines, those
Mhm.
kinds of things, which that is part of it. Those are the optics as the brand is concerned, but the brand itself for me is the essence of everything that you do. It governs the way that you market, the people that you hire, the patients you treat.
Mhm.
If you look at hotels, like if you've ever stayed at a Ritz-Carlton, it doesn't matter which one you stay in. It can be
Mhm.
in Orlando, Florida, or in Dubai or somewhere else in Europe. You're going
Yeah.
to have the same experience across the board because they have a brand essence and a brand promise that they hand down to every partner they have, every employee they have, and they empower them
Mhm.
to live that promise out.
Yeah.
Versus if you go to like a Holiday Inn, right?
Mhm.
big brand, but you can have a different experience at different ones. That's why there's 3 stars at some, 2.5 at others, 4.5 at others. There's a different experience that we all
Hmm.
have at those types, which just makes it a brand name without a brand promise or a brand essence.
Yeah. And the promise is what is somebody going to get when they come to you? I've come to think of it. I totally agree with you. My brand is my logo. No, it's not. Your logo
Right.
is a visual expression of whatever your brand is, and it's just a small little picture anyway. It's tough. I've always thought of it as, look, your patients who choose you have choices, right? They don't necessarily choose you. And to me, the brand is it's what's different and valuable about you, so that they understand what they'd be choosing if they chose you. In a competitive world, why are they choosing you? It's the promise, it's the values, it's the people, it's all those things. And another aspect of it is, you're supposed to deliver great clinical care, right? So that's really not brand defining, um, anymore. It's the rest of the experience is at least as important, right, as the clinical care. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's how I've always thought of it as your patients have choices. Um, your brand is the articulation of what's different and special and valuable about you, so that they'll want to choose you. And they
Right.
understand what that is. They
Mhm.
understand what that is. So
Yeah.
there's
It's,
what is it, then you got to communicate it. Then you can
mhm.
turn it into colors and logos and things. But that's there's no point in building a logo and saying that's my brand. If when you're asked, so why do they choose you and stay with you? You really fumbled the answer, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, and I think it's the difference between selling the steak and selling the sizzle, right?
Hmm.
Or selling the like anybody can make a steak, right? But what
Hmm.
makes your steak different? What makes it
Hmm.
sizzle? What makes it stand out?
Hmm.
Um, we look at healthcare, and if everybody is saying the same thing, which most of them are, they're
Hmm.
saying we have the providers with the best credentials, we
Hmm.
have up-to-date technology, we
Hmm.
use the most forefront research-based methodology to treat our patients. Like you're all saying the same thing.
Hmm.
So if you have the most advanced this and the top that, and they have the most advanced this and the top that, who really has it? Right. So nobody really cares about that. They care
Yes.
about deliver. What are you bringing? And
Yes.
I meet some people who say, oh, well, our shtick in the marketplace is our customer service. And I'm like, really? Google says you have 3.7 reviews. I don't think that
Yeah.
that's really a staple in the marketplace. And like what you said before we started, if you don't decide what your brand stands for, the market will dictate that for you.
Yes.
And that is the thing. You can say, we want our practice to be ABC. We want it to feel like XYZ.
Hmm.
Your brand is what people are saying about you,
Yeah.
not what you're saying about you. And
Yeah.
if those two don't match up, you got a problem. But if
Yeah.
you're saying one thing and all your patients are agreeing that that's the thing, now you have alignment. Now you have congruency in your brand.
Yeah. Absolutely. And there's only one thing that I'm aware of that's more difficult than figuring out what your brand is in the first place, and that's having to rebrand, which is what
Ugh.
you're going to have to do if the market is saying about you ABC, but you really believe it's XYZ. So the work to either switch over so that you now say what they say or convince them to say what you say is a mountain compared to figuring out what you want it to be in the first place. Nobody ever wants to rebrand. Trust me, even those who do it well, they'd rather not do it.
I did it in my practice, 2021, I think, late 2021. And not because we were, I think, missing the mark as to what we delivered, but we were missing the mark on our ideal patient. For a
Mm.
while, our brand was attracting exactly the person we wanted it to attract.
Hmm.
We had an ideal patient avatar, right? A lot of companies call it an ideal client avatar or
Right.
something of that. ICA is what you hear a lot. Well, I
Hmm.
call it IPA, right? Ideal
Right.
patient.
Same. Yeah.
So we had one of those, but we noticed that there was a little, I dare to say, riffraff. Like we were getting like some of these people coming in were like, these aren't our ideal people. And
Hmm.
I found my staff was spending more time trying to convince them that we were the go-to practice rather than them coming in and already knowing.
Hmm.
So I went back to the drawing board and just said, okay, it's time to revamp this. It's time to go deeper. It's time to
Yeah.
expand and
Yeah.
really details out of it. And once we did that, I mean, that year we grew another 38% in top line revenue.
Yeah.
So difference when you really identify, you don't always have to rebrand because there's a problem. Sometimes you just need to rebrand because you need to update.
Yeah. And that's different. And that's different. But you want to get it good, get it kind of accurate. And when you're conceptualizing it at the beginning, that's just the best chance to do it. So, and you kind of hit on, one of the things I wanted to get to is just to kind of, put a fine point on it. The limits to a practice of not having one. You were kind of saying it before. It's like you think you're different, but you're not. And so what happens? You think you are, let's say, what's great about you guys, you practice X is you've got, 20 odd years of surgical experience and whatever, but so everybody else around you has plenty of it. Well, then you're not different. So then how do you win? How do you get patients to choose you? You either have to be chosen by some other way, like your hours are better, or you take more insurance, or what that's what the market's going to do, or you just have to be louder than your competition. You just have to be the one that they hear them, which makes you the most. It's more expensive to be louder,
It,
and it's less efficient, and just to just to because you're like everybody else on a point that matters. They do want a good experience, obviously, but there's nothing differentiating about it. So it's tough to hang your
right.
hat there.
Yeah, and I think that what happens a lot of times in private practice is that we see hospital systems
Mm-hmm.
putting up these billboards with these generic things on them.
Mm-hmm.
We think that we could do the same thing as a
Mm-hmm.
private practice, and you can't. For one, hospitals have multi-million-dollar marketing budgets,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so they can afford to put billboards and ads everywhere under the sun, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a big name that it's well
Yeah.
recognized.
Yeah.
So they have to be as crispy as my friend Seth Turnoff calls it in their marketing message,
Yeah.
right? But as a private practice, you don't have a multi-million-dollar marketing budget. You're lucky if you have a $5,000 marketing budget.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be so specific with your language
Mm-hmm.
around what you deliver, not from an expertise level, but from an empathetic level. What
Mm-hmm.
is it that your message says about the results that people are getting?
Yeah.
How are you the grandmother with the back problem if you're a spine orthopedist and helping them realize that they can go back to getting up and down off the floor with their new grandchildren,
Yeah.
right? How do you take the weekend warrior, marathon runner, mud runner, how do you take them from not being able to do what they love the most on the weekends because
Mm-hmm.
of their need
Mm-hmm.
and give them the confidence in you that you can return them to that lifestyle again?
Yeah.
That matters more in the eyes of the patient population than your credentials.
Yeah.
And too many people lead with authority and not with empathy. So
Mm-hmm.
in your brand messaging, you have to lead with the empathetic and follow it with the authoritative.
Yeah. Right. Because people they buy we people we buy stuff based on our emotions and then we
Right.
justify it with facts later. So that's the order you've got to go in. And since we're a podcast focused on private practices, if you're a private practice surrounded by health systems or large franchises or whatever it is, you already have a difference. You are private. But that's the feature. The question is, what are the benefits to your patients of that? You have more freedom of scheduling. You can take longer with patients if you want. You can, there are no staff physicians per se. You always see the same. I'm not sure what it is. It just depends. But I promise you, because we work with private practices all the time, and a private practice competing with corporate or hospital or health systems base, it is true they're much larger and they have deeper pockets, but doesn't mean they know how to spend it well. And there's certain things that they have to do that you don't. They have to double book and have 15-minute appointments no matter what. Well, what if you need 25? You could do that. You know what I mean? Like you just have to dig a bit. And so that's where the benefits to patients can really come in.
And I think the benefit is identifying the patient who you're for as part of your brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the ideal patient avatar
Mm-hmm.
a few minutes ago. And if you can identify who they are, who is your A player, your tier one, the patient that you could take and clone and treat 99% of the time, who
Mm-hmm.
are they? What do
Mm-hmm.
they care about? What are they upset about in the
Mm-hmm.
healthcare system that you can remedy? Right? What is it about your brand that
Mm-hmm.
speaks to that person
Mm-hmm.
and targets them
Yeah.
versus the anybody, everybody approach that we normally see, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we work with anybody and everyone who's got gut and butt stuff if you're a GI doctor, right?
Right.
Like, well, that doesn't speak specifically to any one person,
Yeah.
right? You got to narrow into the brand message and the essence of who the brand is actually for.
Mm-hmm. And it can work because after you figure that out, you just have to start saying it over and over and over again forever.
Right.
We had a guest from at least a couple of years ago, optometrist and ophthalmologist, and they figured this out, what they wanted. And they're like, look, we still get patients who don't fit the ideal, but it's a lot less than it used to be. And of course, we'll take them, but we're getting a lot more of what we want and a lot less of what we don't. And there's still plenty of patients out there. I think it's a natural reaction to say, well, if I'm a pediatrician, but I only want, I don't know, certain types of kids, just, well, what about the rest of them? And will that be enough? There's enough. I mean,
Plenty.
do that math, I suppose, but it's not gonna, the day after you start doing this, all the ones you say you don't want they're still gonna come. And the ones
Yeah.
it takes time, and it's about it just improving. And but you're right. I mean, there's a bigger marker out there than probably you think. It's certainly worth trying. And to tie back to what you said earlier, that the moment we got clear on who we wanted, revenue started to go up, staff happier, all the good things happen. All the good things happen.
Yeah, because your brand dictates everything that you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
It dictates and demands alignment of all of your systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
If my brand is specifically for, like, so let's take my regenerative medicine practice into
Mm-hmm.
account here. So we're cash based, all right? This is not an insurance funded practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I typically have to target higher income earning people. Well,
Mm-hmm.
higher income earning people have a different lifestyle than,
Mm-hmm.
say, a practice who predominantly treats Medicare, Medicaid people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I have to consider, all right, well, how do these people think? What do they want? Where do they shop? How much
Mm-hmm.
money do they make? Do they have kids? What do they drive? I have to take all this into account.
Mm-hmm.
And then that brand, from every interaction with that patient, has to feel familiar to
Mm-hmm.
that patient,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you take somebody who lives in a $5 million home in a country club and you walk into that home, it's usually very white, right? And very minimalistic.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you walk into my practice and I've got 27,000 picture frames all over the wall,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't speak familiarity to them. So
Yeah.
I have to design the brand feeling of the office
Mm-hmm.
with who I'm targeting. If my
Mm-hmm.
patient journey is for those same types of people, then they're going to demand a more concierge approach. They're
Mm-hmm.
not going to want to sit in my lobby for 2 hours, right?
Right.
To be 10 minutes. They demand something different.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're designing your brand, you have to use that brand as guideposts for who you're satisfying, right? Who is
Mm-hmm.
that patient?
Yeah.
And everything operationally has to be in alignment with that.
Yes. Yes. And the more you dig into this, the more you start to see things start to make sense. Like I admit we're talking, it might feel a bit vague right now the way we're talking, but when you start to define who's the ideal, who are the ideal patient or types of patients we want,
Mhm.
what are we going to do for them that we make sure we do really, really well? And it's an obvious thing to say, but it's not necessarily so obvious. When you start, there's more to it. There's more to it. We start mapping that out. Um, then it just gets much more granular. We talked about the limits of not having one, then the opportunities. If you have an effective brand, we started to say some of these things.
Mhm.
Revenue goes up. The types of patients who come in the door are better fits for
Yep.
you. Um,
Press for your staff.
the cost to acquire them starts to go down because if you've got a difference, then we said earlier you have to be the loudest if you're the same as everybody else to stand out from the sea of competition. But if there's something different about you, you don't have to
Right.
be as loud. You don't have to be the loudest. You just have to be clear about what's
Right.
different, and
Yeah.
that's usually less expensive.
Yeah, clarity matters. Values alignment matters, right? So, there's a place in Orlando that I used to go get a haircut.
Mhm.
And this was an hour-long endeavor, right? This was, the barber shop, you sit in the chair, you get the hair wash, you get the hot towel on the face, you get the
Mhm.
nice shave. Like it's an hour-long endeavor, but you
Mhm.
pay $60 to $65 for that. And
Mhm.
some people go like, shoot, I'm not paying $65 for a haircut.
Mhm.
I'm like, I will because I value being able to
Right.
shut for an hour
Mhm.
and have that experience,
Mhm.
right? Some people want to pay 25 bucks for a haircut so they can get in, get out, and move on with their day.
Mhm.
Those people value
Mhm.
that type of short time frame so they can
Mhm.
get to the to-do list,
Mhm.
right? While other people value the ability to be able to shut off for a little bit,
Yeah.
right? So who are you for, right?
Yeah.
What's the stand for, you
Yep.
know? Let's keep the same barbershop kind of situation in mind. That $65 for an hour long session, these guys are dressed in nice attire. They're
Mm.
wearing buttons on some nice pants, and
Hmm.
sometimes they have suspenders or a bow tie. They kind of give you that
Right.
old barbershop feel.
Hmm.
Versus $20 one, these guys are in shorts and t-shirts,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
like, what's the brand stand for,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong with either one of them, just like there's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with a practice that caters to cash-based patients
Hmm.
or Medicare-based patients. There's nothing wrong with either one of those, but
Right.
you need to make it feel familiar. There has
Hmm.
to be congruency from not just the optics, the colors, and everything else, but
Hmm.
the way we do stuff,
Yeah.
right? And it's not a task list. It's an actual, we believe these things,
Hmm.
therefore we do business this way.
Yeah. Do you see this different with when it's insurance based? And the reason I say is only because the couple of examples we brought up is when, at least you brought up, has been, we're private pay versus insurance based. So already there's sort of an easy to mentally grasp difference. But
Mhm.
what if it's, insurance based versus insurance based in terms of competitors? Um, I could feel a lot of people saying, well, look, it's not like I can charge more. The contract with the insurance carrier says what it says. So what is, what am I doing?
Yeah,
What does brand matter to me, I guess?
yeah. So control what you can control, right? You can't
Mm.
control what insurance companies are going to dictate your worth, which is why I wholeheartedly support
Right.
cash pay, right?
Separate
But
episode. Yeah. Yes, but it's hard to argue with it. Yes.
so then what can you stand for, right?
Hmm.
Other than just increasing quantity to pay bills, what can you stand for?
Hmm.
Is it um, a specific amount of time that you spend with first time new moms at an OBGYN office, right?
Yeah.
First time new moms get a 20-minute appointment, period, no questions asked,
Hmm.
right? Is it a low wait time, right?
Hmm.
We going to wait 2 hours to be seen. We promise you won't wait more than 20 minutes to see your
Hmm.
doctor, right?
Hmm.
So there are different things that your brand can stand for, regardless if you're insurance based or not,
Yeah.
right? A lot of that can be connected with outcomes,
Hmm.
right? So what do your patients say their outcome is when they come to see you, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Dr. John did my back surgery and I feel so much better, and he was so nice. He had great bedside manner. Versus you see some guys who are like, yeah, I had a great outcome, but the service model sucked, right?
Yeah.
Like the guy with no bedside manner. So
Yeah.
insurance space, what do you stand for? What
Hmm.
matters? What are people going to talk the most about you
Hmm.
outside of you complaining about the insurance dictating how you run your business?
Yeah, it's true. And you need to be, think of it this way. You need to be better than you pick something. I want to be better. We want this practice to be better than, better at X.
Right.
You need to be better than your competition, even if everybody still is a pretty low bar, to put it that.
Mhm.
Just say what it is. World class, sure, that's a great aspiration. If you can get there, get there. But you need to be better than your competition, because what do us patients do? We compare, we listen, we read reviews. Because, look, we choose a doctor we hope to stay with forever. We'd rather not switch. Switching is painful. So if you could be better on things that we think matter, or the things that you think matter, um, it'll sort. If you say we want to be, I don't know, the most efficient, no matter what, we're going to get you in and get you out when we said we would, and we sacrifice a little bit of the warm fuzzy, and that's what you want to do. Awesome. Be the best at it. And you will find people who are like, what? I'm a busy guy and I just want to get in, get out, and get the care, get the prescription or whatever, and I'm done. Great. You know who you won't attract? The people who want to sit and talk, which it doesn't sound like this example you really want anyway. Done.
Right.
Be the best at that.
Yeah, be the
Be the
best and
best at
value your
that.
time. Yeah, we
Yeah.
value your time. So we're not the office we have to wait 2 hours. We're the office where you come in, and from the time of your appointment to the time you walk out the door, it's 35 minutes. Boom. And we know this because we tracked it. Like,
Hmm.
here's the other thing, like KPIs are such
Hmm.
a, what are we measuring? We
Hmm.
need to measure the things that are important to the brand.
Hmm.
Measuring stuff to measure stuff, right?
Yeah.
Some practices I work with are like, how much revenue do we generate per square foot? Who gives a
I know.
flip?
I
Like, why
know.
does it matter? Start measuring the wait times,
Hmm.
appointment to being pulled back
Hmm.
to coming in the room.
Hmm.
Measure that, because those give you legs to stand on in your brand and say, we value your time. You will
Hmm.
never spend more than 30 minutes waiting,
Yep.
right? You'll be here for more than 37 minutes and 22 seconds,
Yeah.
right? That's average time spent.
Yeah.
So that speaks to the discerning person who feels like they have to burn half a day.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned, like, what is it that is your differentiator? What do you do better than anybody else in the
Mm-hmm.
market? And one of the downfalls of that is that people say, well, we do this better, this better, this better, this better, this better, this better. You can't approach it like that.
No.
What's the one thing that you can do for one person that's better than anybody else?
Mm-hmm.
Get really good at that.
Mm-hmm.
Then say, what else can we do? Now you pick the next thing.
Yeah.
What's the next one thing that we can do better than anybody else
Mm-hmm.
in our immediate area? Then you do that. And that's how you work down that list.
Yeah.
But everybody's trying to juggle all these brand elements, and you can't do it.
You
You have
can't.
to one
Yeah.
and get good at it, and then
Yeah.
move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Right. I see so many physicians make this mistake where like, oh, we want to do this. Now we want to add that. Let's do this service and that service. And we want to be the best at this. And your brain's about to explode because everything is chaotic. And if your
Mm-hmm.
business is chaotic, it's going to feel disorganized to your patient population,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be efficient for your employees.
Yeah. And your staff are going to feel it first, and they're going to, with the best of intentions, start doing contradictory things because the things you want contradict themselves.
And
so,
staff is equally as important to your brand, right? Because your staff needs to want to work for the brand and what the
mm-hmm.
brand stands for.
Yeah.
Right. Staff turnover is high because we're just hiring people that have experience, but we're not hiring people for the personality traits that connect to the values we establish as a business.
Right. So let's take this example of 37 minutes and 22 seconds. What are the traits you're going to look for when you hire? People who are efficient, people who measure stuff, people who look at the clock, people who, that kind of thing. And let's look at it different. Let's say, you know what, we want to have the best bedside manner in town. Who are you going to hire? Different. Do you still need to be timely in bedside manner example? Sure. Do you still need to have good clinical care? Of course. But the differentiator is what do we want patients to say about us? God, they're so nice. They really cared, unlike others. What do you want patients to say in the first one? I'm telling you what, I get out in 35 minutes every time and my day is not shot. That's what you want people saying. And so now if you are 37 minutes and 22 seconds brand, do you want to hang your hat on having the best bedside manner? I'm not sure, because that's squishy in terms of time. You got to figure it out. It's tough to have a great bedside manner when you're looking at the clock and telling people they have to leave before they want to.
Sure.
So yeah. But this is an example of even where there's a lot of things you can't control. I say, what do we want to be best at?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you introduced the conversation of effective versus efficient,
Mm-hmm.
right? So effective is for people, right? Try effectiveness is for, can I have conversations with individuals and can I receive what they're saying and can I make my points received well without there being any sort of friction between us, right? That's effective. Efficiency is for tasks. They're two different things. So you're going to hire people for those two different things. Do you need them to be task efficient or do they need to be people effective? And all of that has to align with the brand. Now, if you're the 3722 one that we've been discussing, it can still be effective and efficient. You just need to be effective with less words. Right?
Yeah.
You can still do it, but there's a certain way to do it. So you're not going to want people who are long-breathed, who tell 27-hour stories. Like you want people who can come in and be very efficient and very effective with their words, give people what they need, make them feel loved, catered to, and heard, and send them on their way with the idea that, hey, I got everything I need. Somebody listened to me, and I didn't have to burn half a day here.
Yes.
So,
yes. It all matters. It all matters. We've covered a lot of ground, as we always do. Hopefully we've clarified things. With brand, that's a tall task. We're here about maybe 30 minutes or so. It's a tall task, but I hope that we did. Is there anything you think we should have hit that we just didn't get to?
I don't know if it's a hit, as more of it is a recommendation, right? I highly recommend that you use an outside source of somebody to help draw the branding essence out of you. It's hard to be on the inside and say, what do we do really well, versus having somebody on the outside be a mock patient, right? Like a secret shopper, if you will, in your business. You look at what's online, what people are saying about you, and all of your footprints, and then to be able to tell you, like, this is what people are saying, this is what I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
but also what is it that you want to create and why do you want to create it? And then take that and design it into this brand essence model that you start using for guideposts in your business. When you try to do this by yourself, it can be very difficult. Even for my practice, it's as the operations guy, the director of operations, I still hired an outside person to come in
Yeah.
because I'm in the middle. I'm in all of it. And I need somebody that can give me a third party external view. So I
Yeah.
highly recommend that for everybody to, because this is, like you said, a long process and you want somebody that can help walk you methodically through the steps.
Yeah. You're too close, and it requires a certain level of criticism. It's hard to be critical of yourself. That's just natural human nature. One thing I'll add to that is, as you start to go through this, understand the difference between a feature and a benefit. So as an example, the feature is, we do everything in a half an hour. Let's go back to that one. You're in and out in a half an hour. Okay, what's the bet? That's the feature. The benefit is predictability, certainty, your day's not crashed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A feature is we're private practice. We have a client. This is what they'd say. We're private practice. And then I would say, that's great. So what? Like, why do I as a patient care about that? Oh, we can schedule as we wish. If we fall behind with one patient, the next patient isn't shortchanged on time because we run the show. That's the benefit. It's the same people and all these other things. Those are the benefits to patients. So that's what you care about, is the benefit to the target audience or audiences, a couple that you really want to get more of. Once you start talking in the benefits to them, and then talk to them, as you were saying, does it sound like a benefit to you? Would you value that? Oh yeah, I would. Now you're really onto something. It doesn't have to be that complicated, but just don't get stuck in I call it feature land. You're in feature land. Get out of feature land. We need the benefits. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you apply that same model to the barbershop example I gave a few minutes ago,
Yeah.
right? The feature is a long haircut, right? That's an experience,
Mm-hmm.
but the actual benefit is I get some downtime, I get some relaxed time. I might even get some bro time,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
having that, right? Versus the short term, right? That's a short haircut, short feature. The
Mm-hmm.
benefit is I'm in and out. I get a quality haircut. I'm in and out. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice too much of my day. I can
Mm-hmm.
hit it on my lunch break,
Mm-hmm.
right? Thing. So, and those are huge differentiators. And too many
Mm-hmm.
people talk about features as a part of their brand and marketing versus
Yeah.
why or how those features benefit the patrons, the patients who, the clients who
Exactly.
take advantage of those features.
Exactly. Perfect. A great way to wrap us to a close. Daniel, I love these talks. I really do. I like them because we're talking marketing, which is,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
hopefully we've tackled brand, listeners, a little bit. Don't get caught up in colors, tone, story, logo. Unless you've got something where you can look at each other and say, we think we're better for our patients at that. Until you have that, everything else is guesswork. What should the logo be? I don't know. What are we better at? What do we stand for? What are we looking for? And part of it is also, what do we not stand for? We actually didn't hit this, is if you're saying you're good at this, you want to be best at this, you're also consciously saying, we're not going to try to be best at that.
Right. Or we're not for this, like
Yeah, we're for these patients. We're not for, yes.
if you're
Yeah.
this, we're for you. If you want that, we're not for you. And we're
Yeah.
okay with it.
Yeah. Initially, saying no to a segment of a population is fear wracking. It is. It just is. But it's also freeing once you get comfortable with it. And you see that, I said no to this population and it didn't really do anything bad to us. Now you can make poor choices and hurt yourself, but you're not going to do that, listener. You're not going to do that.
Avoid putting revenue over purpose.
There you go. Yeah. If you want to put a low ceiling on your revenue, do it, put it over purpose. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Cool. Thank you so much once again for coming
Yes,
back to
sir.
PracticeCare. And and so we've got contact information for you. They're in the show notes to your episode. Anybody who wants to contact you, they have yet another way to do it. 2 quick points before wrapping up. First, if you haven't subscribed to PracticeCare yet, please do so. PracticeCare is one word, easy to find. We're everywhere: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, any player. Just subscribe. That's the easiest way to stay up to date with each new weekly episode. And also, if you're like Daniel or us and you serve private practice owners, or if you're a private practice owner yourself, you've got some experience on the business side of private practice, whatever it may be. We say business side very intentionally. The business side of a practice is vast. All topics are good topics. in the show notes for Daniel's episode and every episode. There's a link. Super easy. Tell us what's on your mind so we can get you scheduled as soon as possible. Thanks very much. And until next time.